Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the number one source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lopsinger.
Lobstradamus strikes again. You were early, man.
I know. We look like geniuses. For once in our lives, we look like geniuses.
It was all you. Dominik Shine gets his NHL contract. He gets his first shot in the NHL. And one amazing story. Like, just everyone loves to see it kind of thing. There's not a single person in the world who doesn't see that. Sees what Dominik Shine has done. You know, Michigan native, playing for his hometown team. Has been with the Griffins since 2016. Hasn't played in the NHL, didn't earn an NHL deal, hasn't played a regular season game for the Red Wings or anyone else. Actually, a Northern Michigan grad as well, I should add in there. And he gets his shot for the Kings game. If you rewind to our interview with Bob Kaser before the end of 2024, Evan asked Bob specifically about Dominik Shine. And something Evan won't tell you right now is that wasn't in our show notes. That wasn't in our notes for that interview at all. Evan just had a feeling. That was the Lobstradamus senses tingling.
The Galaxy told me to bring that up, and I was just kind of doing all the pre-work for the Red Wings when they were looking to give him a contract.
Yeah. And it wasn't even just that. It was like at the live event with the Grand Rapids Griffins. I think you talked to Dan Watson about it, and we were talking off air about it as well, just in the side hallway there. So Dominik Shine, you were early in on that. That is the latest. We need to start paying more attention to what you say.
Me too. Me too.
We are without Brad Crisco on this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast. I'll either hold for applause or for a small minority of you, maybe some mourning. But we are going to fire away an exciting episode nevertheless. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
And I'm Evan.
Brad is away, getting shin extensions yet again. On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to talk about Detroit's extremely exciting win against the LA Kings, which the theme was, the kids are all right. If you count Lucas Raymond in the kids as well. Pumped up game. Raymond, Kasper, Soderblom, Johansson, the vibes are back to last season. So we're going to get into all that. Takeaways from that game and storylines about Raymond, about Kasper and what he's done since he's been on the top line. And a quick look at how the standings shifted a bunch on a night where Detroit didn't even play. A world of NHL news. We'll see what we're able to get into with Jim Rutherford. There's no dull interview with him.
That is not how you get maximum leverage in trade negotiations.
Not at all. We're going to talk about that. If anything is relevant for Detroit in terms of the Petterson and, maybe JT Miller, Boeser, Quinn Hughes down the road, like what's going on there? That's going to be a big thing. And then we actually have a little bit of a surprise mini guest. It's not a full interview because we want to talk to you about a very important event coming up, but we have actually Jiri Fischer on this episode to come and talk to us about some very important work that he and the organization that he works with is doing upcoming on this February 1st. So all of that and lots more. Very quickly, if you want to support the Winged Wheel Podcast, go to patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast to support the show. You get access to benefits like our Patreon exclusive bonus overtime episodes. They're a blast. We include bloopers. We let loose, have fun, answer any questions that didn't make the main show. It's a good time. Much different tone than the main show. You also are automatically entered into all of our giveaways. You have an opportunity to enter into a giveaway for 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game. All of those going directly to our Patreon supporters. And you get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. Ton of benefits. Won't go through it all here. Patreon.com/Winged Wheel Podcast. It's what allows this show to do its thing. We'll jump right into it with the LA Kings game. And, this was the last game of this 3-game homestand before Detroit has a tough trip out west. And the LA Kings are no slouch to play against either. No one was looking at that game and thinking, yeah, Detroit absolutely has us in the bag. I've heard some people say it would just be nice to go 500 against the upcoming teams. But this game was, I think, one of the many times of late where I've thought this feels like last season. And I almost can't believe the juxtaposition between the November-December Red Wings and these Detroit Red Wings right now.
It's the continuation of that story. That the Red Wings are so night and day from where they were pre-Christmas. It's just hard to believe that this is the same team.
And the game didn't start in a way that was pumped up like that. It wasn't a positive start. Kevin Fiala opened scoring 14:50 in, and then not long after that, what is listed as a Quinton Byfield goal was actually
a real nice Moritz Seider goal.
It was a Mo Seider own goal, and we were laughing actually before we were recording. Can you imagine that was like Petrie or
Hall? Oh my God. Red Wings social verse would have imploded.
It would have been nuclear. You saw it on Mo Seider's face. The face-off went back, and Talbot interacted with the puck for a second, and Seider was just trying to pull it backwards behind the net, and it just kind of rolled off of his blade in a way he didn't expect, and it fooled Talbot, and it went right in, and you're just like, oh, that it just rips your heart out of your throat.
Mo Seider could do that every game for the rest of the year, and he would still be a monumental benefit to this team.
Oh yeah, it's hard to look at that and say, oh wow, Mo Seider, we can't forgive you for that. He's still very much a net positive for this team.
And that's the type of moment that pre-Christmas Red Wings that would have been it. They would have packed it up, went home, no 2 points tonight. And they just were so fragile at all times that something like that would just end the game.
That's exactly it. And that's the thing. Last season, what we saw with Detroit, especially over time, is they built that resilience and they were playing into the third period. And the fact that that disappeared into this season was a big concern for the team. And so the fact that that's back and they were able to come out and a lot more strong in the second period and onwards, like the mentality, you're totally right. The mentality, the energy, the lack of a loss of confidence and the juice, as we talk about a lot, massive. And the leader of the turnaround for the Red Wings, there's a lot of names around it. It has to be Lucas Raymond. And for him to score pretty much immediately after that Seider own goal, I think that was the most important moment in the game in my mind. It wasn't the game-winning goal, wasn't the nicest goal, but it was the most important goal of the game for me.
It's a real momentum resetter, right? Like everything is going the way for LA on the road. They get an own goal to give them a cushion. They're up 2-0 early in the first period. And Lucas Raymond comes out and totally flips that back and gets the team right back in there. So yeah, Lucas Raymond continues to be the de facto leader of this team, and his play this season is nothing short of remarkable.
So he comes in and finishes a play in front where him, Larkin, and Kasper are generating some buzz around the net. He finishes it on his backhand. Beautiful finish, too. Not an easy play at all. And so they go into the first intermission down 1 goal. And in the second period, the power play strikes Alex DeBrincat from Lucas Raymond and Mo Seider. And, actually, I should say Raymond's goal was his 20th, which brings him to be the 3rd Detroit Red Wings player to reach that mark so far this year, with DeBrincat and Larkin as well. And then DeBrincat's goal was his 21st, but that pass by Lucas Raymond, it was on the 5-on-3.
Unbelievable.
This guy's, he's reaching.
He's feeling it right now, that's for sure. Oh. That is a super confident play. He knew that lane was there, and he ripped that pass. And, last year DeBrincat, he would probably, his finishing wasn't all that great. And right now he's just getting some unbelievable looks, and he's finishing them. It's awesome to see.
It's got to help when you have Lucas Raymond. You're right. He's grooving. He's having that one round you have a summer where the ball is going where you hit it out on the golf course, but that's his entire season so far.
Yeah, it's you need someone on the other end to keep the run hot going if that's what Lucas Raymond's on, and Alex DeBrincat is paying dividends on that right now. It's very good for everyone on the top line and on the power play especially.
And for Raymond to do these things, this is going to sound tired because we're doing this every episode, but he's making these plays constantly, but he's pulling defenders away and generating space for his teammates, but not in a way where they're easy passes. He made a cross seam pass there that he had to thread it, and he's making them without hesitation, with confidence, and the execution is just like to a T.
We're starting to see a lot of that deception in his game that he had in his draft year and his draft plus 1 year at the World Juniors especially. He has all the confidence in the world right now. Everything's sort of going his way. I mean, it's all because of his hard work and his willingness to continue to improve, but defenders just don't know what Lucas Raymond's going to do with the puck right now. We saw the other night on the DeBrincat power play goal where he fooled everyone on the planet with that pass, and that just keeps building and building and building. And I don't know how he's gonna have to go ultra cold for that confidence to disappear.
And the fact that he's doing it and has done it means even if he goes through a cold spell, you're confident that it's there.
Yeah.
This isn't like, a third, fourth line player who's just, the numbers are going his way right now.
Yeah.
This is the effort, the execution, and the results are matching it.
Yeah.
Elmer Soderblom scores what ends up being the game-winning goal, and that's his first of the season, not the first of his career. Obviously, he started off with a stint in Detroit a couple seasons back, but he scores his first of the season, and one massive moment ends up being the game-winning goal. It's just the big body in front. He buries it. He scores the goal, the, in quotes, right way, and the way that Detroit wants him to play. But I think what's even funnier is that more excited than Elmer Soderblom and everyone in the stands was Simon Edvinsson on that play.
They've obviously have spent a lot of time together growing up in Sweden, playing on the World Junior teams, coming up through the ranks, and then obviously in Grand Rapids. So I'm sure he's thrilled to have a fellow massive Swede in the lineup with him. And for Elmer to score there, it was just awesome to see how excited Simon Edvinsson was for him. Those are the things you look for in a team, right? Like,
yeah.
How many times have we seen just the Red Wings be completely dead emotionally? So to see the joy and, being happy for a teammate to come into the lineup and score again this season, it's just so good to see. The Red Wings are just vibing right now.
Not that I like to speak for Brad, because I don't think anyone should have to hear his voice any more than they already do. But what Brad would say here very correctly is that the energy is fantastic, yes, but like more importantly, or something that makes it even better or amplifies it, is that the energy and the production and the vibes, that we love to use that word, are coming from players who are not just going to be here for a long time, but are integral to this team's success. It's coming from the future core. So the fact that, Elmer and Johansson are coming up and providing support from down the lineup is remarkable. And the fact that Lucas Raymond and Marco Kasper on the top line are popping off, and Simon Edvinsson in his key top defensive role, like all of that is just, you're not getting this from a grinder who might not be here next year.
Exactly. It's not coming from the guys who are on their late career UFA contract. You're getting it from the young guys. And I think this game against LA, for me, and from what I could gather from reading everyone's sort of reactions to the game, this was the mark, the point in time where I think everyone's starting to realize that a lot of these kids can play. And I don't think we need to rely on the veterans as much as we need to. And I think a lot of credit should go obviously to the Red Wing staff for calling some of these guys up, but I think a lot of the credit goes to Todd McLellan as well. I don't know if we would have seen Marco Kasper on the top line under Derek Lalonde, and that's no offense to him. I just think Todd McLellan's really trying things out, seeing things in practice that he wants to try in games, and it's working. So I think this is the real turning point for when the kids start to make a jump and start to take more control of this team going forward.
And how much of a loss was it this year when Perron left the team? Obviously.
Huge.
And so you're right. Like the fact that you don't have to rely on that, obviously would love to have another Perron type in the locker room, but now you don't run the risk of losing him because you have to decide, do I overpay a 6-year-old or whatever in free agency, or do I let him walk and the room suffers for it?
Now you can call up a Carter Mazer on an ELC, and it allows you to have more cap flexibility with Perron's a bad example because he did produce, but you get someone into the lineup where it doesn't feel like a massive drop off anymore.
All this, and I haven't even talked about what was the most electric goal of the game, which is Lucas Raymond makes a play along the boards to get the puck out, and Marco Kasper is rushing down the ice. Him and Larkin jump on the opportunity. Odd man rush going the other way. Marco Kasper down the right side, moving his feet, fires the puck, rebound, jumps around the goalie behind the defender.
Best rendition of Bobby Orr.
Oh, man. Like diving, bangs the puck home. Ken said it best. What an effort. What a goal. And it was like just the roof must have blown off the place.
Confidence right now is spelled with a capital K, because for Marco Kasper to look off the captain of the Detroit Red Wings on a 2-on-1, and thank God he buried, because that is a confident, ballsy play. And when he initially shot, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he looked off Larkin. Obviously, a second later, he finishes his own play. But man, Marco Kasper is another guy just feeling it right now, and I can't be happier for the guy.
And you're right. Like these kids, it's not just that these kids can play. It's that, oh my God, I'm so tired of even me repeating my own phrases, but it's for a good reason. They're playing the right way. Like you're seeing Marco Kasper's game translate into results. We'll have stats for you later. So like he was rewarded with 2 goals and an assist because they gave him the empty netter later on, where Larkin made sure he got that. So multi-goal game, 3 points. Johansson got an assist. Lucas Raymond got a goal and 3 assists casually for him. He's back above. I think he's at a 92-point pace right now. Like just everyone's feeling it, and everyone's doing it by playing the right way. There was wins earlier this season where you're like, yeah, that's Cam Talbot's win. That's Alex Lyon's win.
Cam Talbot did have a good game, other than, Moritz Seider scoring on him. But I thought Cam Talbot played well. LA had some great opportunities, but it was never going to be their game with how that game was going. The Red Wings were gathering momentum. The energy was just on their side. The fans were super into it. It's just really hard for a road team to stifle that kind of energy in a building.
Yeah. And you know what? Like that effort can be there every game, and the results might not be. Like Soderblom might not be able to bang home the one in front, or the defender might be able to clear the rebound before Kasper can get there. But if they play with that kind of energy, they are going to catch a lot of better teams on paper off guard, or when Detroit has home advantage and things like that. So like I was talking to someone last night, and I was saying, like, playoff chances aside, because it's such a big pool of teams competing, if this is how it is the rest of the season, I'm happy. If Kasper is going off like this, I'm happy. If Lucas Raymond is getting people talking about, is this guy, the most underrated star, potentially superstar in the league, or next one to be, I'm happy. This is all, I don't want to say this is all the Red Wings fans wanted. Red Wings fans want to see wins, playoffs, a Stanley Cup. Like, let's not mince words or reduce that, but this is a big departure from the silver linings we used to draw earlier in the rebuild.
Like, at least we can start the prospect profiles, and we'll really know who we're going to draft at 6.
Oh, man. Dude,
We were this close.
So close.
This close. The height of Brad from doing prospect profiles.
We held out so long. I refused. And even as I was refusing, in my head, I'm like, no.
This is the stupidest thing. I can't believe we're not doing prospect profiles.
It was, well, even the episode before Lalonde got fired, we were saying like, hey, like one
it's
more.
Almost inevitable.
Yeah. And then after the St. Louis game, I messaged in the chat. I was like, yeah, the next one has to be like, we're talking like it has to happen at this point.
Can you imagine we did a prospect profile and they won 7 games in a row? How stupid we look. Thank God we didn't do that.
One more thing from that game. Dominik Shine obviously comes up. Liked him in the depth role. He had his moments, and I think the biggest one was leveling Turcotte late in the game. He was tied up with Seider. He actually hit him, and I was like, oh, is he going to go into the boards? Funny, but he didn't. He just kind of like, shoulders up in the air and feet up in the air and was okay. And then Shine took a hit down the boards later on in the play. If that happened to a Red Wings player, I'd want a response too. But all in all, Shine made his presence known, and just so pumped up for the guy that he got his moment and got his game. And as of right now, is traveling with the team for the West Coast trip. So we'll see how he potentially factors into the lineup.
Yeah, obviously we didn't expect Dominik Shine to come in and, be a massive contributor to the Red Wings in his first game. Obviously, we're super happy he got into that game. I wouldn't say he was overly noticeable, but that's not a bad thing for a guy who's playing down in the depth role. Like when you ISO'd him a little bit, he didn't look out of place from a pace perspective. He got involved when he needed to, and that's exactly what you're looking for a guy who's going to get like less than 10 minutes in a game. So if I'm rating Dominik Shine's first NHL game, I think given the sort of magnitude of the moment for him, I think he did just fine.
Before the game, to specify, he signed a 2-year contract, and to get this opportunity at age 31, like,
awesome.
Not all hope is lost.
It could be us. I just need to start going to the gym 7 years ago.
I need to be a lot better at hockey.
Yes. The only thing holding me back is the gym time.
That's right. I saw the video of him just dummying someone in a fight. I think it was 3-punch KO, and I was like, yeah, the Red Wings could use a bit of that.
I think, you think about it and you look at Dominik Shine's career, it almost seems like a no-brainer that he should get his moment with the Red Wings, and his post-game interview is just so good, and how thankful he was for everything and thanking everybody else in his life for getting him to that moment. It's just, how can you not be emotional about sports?
Oh, yeah. It's just such a great story. So that's the game. Upcoming, they have a big trip where it's not going to be easy, to put it lightly. On Thursday night, to wrap up January, they have the Edmonton Oilers on the road. That's 9 Eastern. Then on Saturday, they have the Calgary Flames at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, they have the Vancouver Canucks. Then to wrap up the trip is the Seattle Kraken on Tuesday, February 4th, 10 Eastern.
It actually got more difficult because the Kraken waived Grubauer today. So they're actually going to be an improved Seattle team. So that does not bode well for the Red Wings.
It's going to be tough to take points off there, but it is great that they are coming into it on a 3-game win streak all at home. So they bought themselves, I don't want to say they bought themselves some buffer, because we're going to talk right now about where the standings are at. But I think if they walk away from those 4 games with a 500 points percentage, you'd be happy if you're the Red Wings.
Yeah, obviously you're on the road, so all the Western Conference teams that you're playing are going to have home ice advantage, and they're going to be line matching, and you've got to go against Connor McDavid and apparently the unstoppable Leon Draisaitl. So it'll be tough. Like, they're going to have their work cut out for them, but if they want to be a playoff team, they got to try and cut some points out of these teams.
Speaking of playoff team, last night was an amazing set of results for the Red Wings. Of 5 games, 4 of them went Detroit's way, where only the New York Islanders winning went against what they're hoping for. So the Islanders beat the Avs, but other than that, the Blackhawks beat the Lightning, the Hurricanes beat the Rangers, both of those road wins, by the way. The Sabres beat the Bruins, and then the Jets beat the Habs. So Detroit gets a ton of good results there. And right now in the standings, they have Columbus ahead of them on points percentage, 2 more points, same games played. Detroit does have more regulation wins, so if they tie them in points, they'll have that tiebreaker. And then you get into the wildcard teams. You have Tampa Bay, 55 points in 49 games, and with a lower points percentage, you have the Boston Bruins, 56 points in 52 games. So Detroit has 2 games in hand on Boston, and if they win both, they would pass them in points. Right behind Detroit is Montreal with the identical record, but Detroit just has more regulation wins. The New York Rangers are a point back in the same amount of games played. The Philadelphia Flyers are a point back with 1 more game played. And then the New York Islanders, who have a game in hand on Detroit, are 2 points back. And Detroit would have the tiebreaker on them. So it's a packed bunch. It's anyone's contest at this point, but this feels like the first time in a long time Detroit's had a good set of results where these teams finally lost.
They're starting to bubble to the top a little bit with the results. When they went on the 7-game win streak, Montreal and Columbus were also keeping pace, so it was tough to make up ground. But when you look at like the last 10 and some of the streaks some of these teams are on, like Pittsburgh's lost 3 in a row. The Islanders somehow are 8-2 in their last 10 and have won 5 in a row. So they're throwing their hat back in the ring. And we've got the Red Wings with 3 wins in a row. Montreal's lost 3 in a row, so they're falling off. Tampa's lost 2 in a row. So I know we keep saying it's a mid-off and, nobody's trying to seize this, but I think if teams have, 1 to 2 good weeks, they're right in the mix of this thing. So you can't take any time off if you want to be a playoff team and get one of those wild card spots, and the Red Wings are right back in position.
If they can just survive this road trip and not, drop a ton of points, like if they take 2 points of 8, that's going to probably be a problem.
That would be bad.
Unless everyone else loses around them, which happened at the end of the last season. So not that would be disqualifying. But then they just have one more game where they have to go and make Nikita Kucherov pay. I got a lot of, I know it's probably not going to happen. Detroit's in a playoff race and they don't exactly have those guys, but still. And then you're in the Four Nations face-off break and you can recuperate. You could, everyone else too, but you have time to kind of rest up and reset as well. So I think that'll be key for Detroit.
The Red Wings are notably strong coming off of short-term breaks. So maybe another 7-game win streak is right around the corner after the Four Nations face-off.
At the very least, the vibes are through the roof and
they're confident.
Yeah, they're far removed from the throes of earlier in the season. Actually, before we go to break here, I want to read out some stats, and this was posted on January 28th. All of these about the last month or so. Detroit, across the entire NHL from December 29th, like about a month there, first in the entire NHL in points. It's the best record. Marco Kasper, first among all NHL rookies in goals and second in points since January 1st. You have Lucas Raymond tied for first in the entire NHL in points since December 29th. Moritz Seider, third in assists and fifth in points for defensemen since December 27th. The power play is the best in the NHL. Larkin leading the NHL with 6 power play goals since December 31st. And obviously the vibes through the roof. And then even if you zero in on Marco Kasper, since being promoted that top line, 10 games, 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points. Just unreal.
And it's not like he's getting tap-ins or just some secondary assists that are just, nice to get. He's contributing in a meaningful way, and he looks like he fits right in on that line. Him and Larkin are just little honey badgers on the puck, and when they get it to Lucas Raymond in space, he has got the gifts and the ability to find open players and make plays. So Todd McLellan has found a couple diamonds in the rough with the roster right now, and it's just exciting times for Red Wings fans.
Not done talking about it. More after this break, but first a word from the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast. Welcome back. I don't know how often we get all good vibe episodes, so I'm leaning into this. And I'm first going to start with something people are probably tired of hearing me say, because the boring answer is that it's too early to tell, but he probably will be eventually. But Lucas Raymond and the words elite and superstar. And, the fun joke is he's already a superstar and he's already elite. He's already one of the best players in the world. And it's fun to, be a Homer fan and enjoy what Lucas Raymond's doing. But just in terms of actually projecting him out, you look at his draft comparables. How many times did we say Mitch Marner? And you see a lot of comparables in the game. I mean, the joke here is that he'll take a hit to make a play, and that's what Red Wings fans will point to a lot too in terms of differences. But Mitch Marner is a high end producer in this league who is regularly a 100-point guy or threatening it, if not more. And so, do you see Lucas Raymond reaching that tier? Is the quality of teammate a part of it? Is it just do you see him reaching that superstar status in your mind?
I think it's too soon to say, which isn't a good answer by any means. But, going off what we already know about Lucas Raymond, he's committed to making the changes he needs to find success at the NHL, whether that's on ice and most notably off ice. He's a big guy now. If I was a betting man, I would bet on yes. I think right now, Lucas Raymond already is elite. If you ended the season right now, he's top 15 in points in the NHL. And that puts you firmly in the elite status. You don't get to that level by mistake or by accident. He's put in the work and he's earned it. Superstar status for me, you either need to have it on draft day when you come into the league and everyone's like, this is a stud. He's a top 2 pick, which I think in a redraft, he obviously would be. So I think he will earn that over time if the results and the production continues to happen. Everything I'm seeing right now would indicate, yes, he's on that route, but it comes down to consistency, and he needs to do it over a longer period of time. And I don't want to take anything away of what Lucas Raymond has done since Larkin's injury last year to now. It's been a meteoric rise, and I don't know where the ceiling is with Lucas Raymond anymore. I used to think, point per game, and now I think he could easily be a 100-point winger in the NHL.
With Lucas Raymond, it's one, he's already playing a complete game. Like, he's never really suffered from a lack of tenacity or a lack of willingness to be in his own zone or play hard both ways. And for anything that might be a deficiency, like, I can't really point to a part of his game that's actually bad. It might just not be elite, like his hockey IQ or his ability to distribute the puck. So he's coming in with that already. He's developed all of that on all of those fronts. I can't think of a time other than, his cold spell and his sophomore slump where he would go for extended periods without, finishing, which is very normal for NHL prospects and young players. Like, I can't think of a time where he was severely deficient on any facet of his game.
Only time was really his sophomore slump, but that's, to be expected given the grind of an 82-game season, your first year and a half into the league.
So he plays like he plays like a dog. Like, he plays like a winner. You see Todd McLellan making comparisons to Henrik Zetterberg, and it sounds hyperbolic, but you look at the way they play the game with, like, Henrik Zetterberg, insane offensive talent. But when he ascended to that next level where, during playoff runs, I actually think Henrik Zetterberg often ascended to be the best player on the planet, if not one of them. It was his ability to completely shut down the opponents coming the other way. So you have a guy who's able to, crack that 90-point plateau, hopefully here soon, and make the most of his teammates around him, and is only continually getting better. And he does not come with the very common deficiencies in guys who can do that, where it's like, yeah, they give up a ton of that defensively, and they aren't willing to get their nose dirty or get into scrums or things like that. Like, Lucas Raymond is all the things you love to see in an energy player. He's all the things you love to see in a defensively minded young player, and has the most offensive talent on this team. So putting all of that together, to me, is like, we were having conversations last season about, is he going to be a superstar? So to me, it's an inevitability. And even if he doesn't crack an arbitrary plateau, and that's like the ultimate thing, people are going to say, unless you do 100 points, more than once, that's fine. I think what he brings to the table in a complete game, if he keeps tracking even 80% as well as he is right now, no doubt in my mind, he's going to be one of the top players in the league.
Yeah, and I think for Lucas Raymond, superstar status will be achieved through the playoffs. No one's going to doubt that Mitch Marner is a superstar, right? But when it comes to the playoffs, he gets a lot of empty calorie points. So I think if Lucas Raymond isn't going to be 100-point guy, he's going to have to do it like the Barkov type way, where he's underrated forever, and then he just has his superstar moments where he just shuts down the best players in the world, and it becomes a proven winner.
So with Raymond doing that, and I know people don't really love this conversation sometimes because they're like, what does it matter? Star, superstar, like, this is a silly designation. I honestly think a lot of this is like Lucas Raymond, because he hasn't had that playoff time, or the Red Wings have just been this rebuilding team forever that's been mired by disappointment more than anything, really. Like, people are they're not really wise to what Lucas Raymond's doing. So I obviously want to see this team make the playoffs for the obvious reasons, but at the same time, like, I am so excited for the Red Wings and for Lucas Raymond to get his opportunity, Mo Seider as well, to get their opportunities in the playoffs, because I think you're going to see, it's going to be learning moments for them for sure.
Absolutely.
But you're going to get to see what their intensity and their abilities are going to do at the toughest test.
The playoffs is the time for elite players to ascend into superstar type players. How many times have we had conversations around players in the NHL? It's like, oh yeah, they're great in the regular season, or they've always been great, but they've never won. It's like, if you are great in the playoffs, your legend or your resume becomes undeniable. So time will tell once the Red Wings make it. Judging by the DNA of Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider, I would imagine that they will be playoff dogs. So I'm excited. I cannot wait for the moment that the Red Wings get their first playoff game, and to see what those kids have will be super exciting.
A little more here just on Marco Kasper and the kind of youth movement that's leading this charge lately for the Red Wings. So Marco Kasper, spent his time in the AHL and was coming in as a guy who everyone said his game will translate into the NHL level once he makes it, and he'll be able to make an impact sooner because of the way he plays. And it wasn't like a certainty from the start for sure. He needed time to kind of get his legs going and get the process underway with the Griffins. But with the Red Wings, like since coming up to that top line, and really since Todd McLellan has taken over, you can see what Marco Kasper has brought to the table. And it's everything we expected, but a lot of us are seeing even more than what we expected with Marco Kasper. Like it's not any individual thing. Like we always know that his offensive ability was more than what was said around draft time. We've always known that his legs and his motor and his grind as compete were like next level. But the way he's putting it together, and like you said when we were talking about the game, like looking off the captain on a 2-on-1 in a confident way.
Rookies don't do that.
No, like this kid is, if the Red Wings found a player in here, which again wouldn't be like you don't have to look far to see people who are singing Marco Kasper's praises from the beginning. But if they found more than what they bargained for here, my God, like another win for Detroit in the draft would be massive. It's still early. Like I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but for him to come in and be able to slot into the top 6 and be a part of winning hockey is wild.
I think a lot of the credit should go to obviously Marco Kasper because he's the guy putting in the effort. But I think a lot of the credit should go to Dan Watson and the Grand Rapids Griffins organization as well. They brought in this kid a little bit of a slow start in Grand Rapids, but he was willing to put in the work, willing to learn how to play the pro game. And when we did our first Grand Rapids meetup night, and Dan Watson came on, and Matt Luff came on as well, and they both said like Marco Kasper's a dog, like he is learning to play the pro game. So Kasper obviously had a slow start with the Red Wings this year as well, with minimal playing time, didn't get up the lineup quite as much. But he's starting to figure it out now, and you can see the confidence. He's excelling in the opportunities he's been given. It's going to be a consistency thing with him, just like it is any rookies. It'll be interesting to see how he finishes out the season from a points perspective and just an overall play perspective. But given the start to his career, he's almost a half point per game rookie. That's incredible.
And I think it also rubs off as well on the other rookies, like Elmer Soderblom coming in, having his friends that he's known from Grand Rapids. Like that's massive. Like I know it was funny to see Simon Edvinsson come over and be more excited than him, but you have to imagine that's important. Like it's very hard to do. And if you think of Soderblom's situation where he came in, made the team and then lost his spot and wasn't able to break in for over a year.
Yeah.
Like that's huge for him. And then Johansson, who's been a story all season of, is looking kind of tenuous at the start. And you're like, was this just the throes of the Red Wings holding him back? And then now he gets into that second pairing spot with Edvinsson. And not that it's a fantastic decor, but that decor is well stabilized now, more so to the point where we've had way fewer games saying, yeah, that's a bad Red Wings defense that lost him that game. He is a massive part of that stability.
I think stability is the number one word with the decor right now. We saw just a bit of a jumble with the bottom 2 pairings, and having Johansson come in, play with Edvinsson, start to show some confidence. Like he made an unbelievable play the other night on the right-hand side. Nice little dish off the wall to Larkin as the puck was being rung around. And you can just tell the confidence is growing in him as well. So yeah, the kids are all right. They've nurtured something in Grand Rapids, that group down there, and they're starting to figure it out in Detroit. And it's exciting times. Even though the Red Wings right now are outside the wild card spot, the Red Wings are entertaining, and the team is just exciting.
I treasure these episodes. Not the ones without Brad. I do that too, but I do treasure these episodes where it's like even though we know the rest of the season is going to be hard with the toughest schedule in the NHL, all odds are stacked against Detroit, and they have the start of the season to kind of work against in terms of making up lost ground. Like, these are the storylines that make it so, like, they're not empty silver linings. Like, these are meaningful things where you can start to look at next season and beyond and be like, all right, this thing's real.
And these are not just like 5-game spurts right now where somebody's on a run hot. Like, we're watching Alex DeBrincat finish on a regular, consistent basis. I think last year we talked about how he hadn't scored in like a calendar month.
Yeah.
We're seeing Lucas Raymond ascend to stardom. We're seeing Dylan Larkin continue to be Dylan Larkin. He's got a supporting cast now that are picking up the slack. And we're starting to see the young guys come in and contribute in meaningful, consistent ways. It's something we haven't seen as Red Wings fans, I don't know, a long, long time.
We'll see how things go, especially next episode. There's going to be the Edmonton game. There's going to be the Calgary game, and those are two very tough teams in the West. We're probably going to record before the Vancouver game, so we'll be halfway through that road trip. We'll see if the vibe's the same, but for now, we're happy about it. All right, we are going to jump into some NHL news, and there is a lot of it. Very quickly to start, the NHL Department of Player Safety got one right, one wrong. Lilleberg for his hit on JT Compher that kept him actually out of that Kings game, we should say. He was out, Patrick Kane was out, Petrie remains out, Tarasenko out from his being banged up in the previous game / keeping him out of the lineup. But Lilleberg for his hit on Compher got a 2-game suspension, which I looked at that, I was like, yep, fair, that's good.
I would say that is a textbook 2-game or potentially more type suspension. So kudos to the Department of Player Safety on getting that mostly correct.
And as Brad mentioned in the last episode, the refs on the ice legitimately missed it because they gave him a 2-minute minor for interference, and that's just because they felt like they had to give him something.
The Department of Player Safety is the right hand and the referees are the left, and they do not like each other right now at all.
No, not at all. Now, what the Department of Player Safety, I think, got wrong is just absolutely nothing on the Kucherov trip, which isn't a surprise. Like, that is what we anticipated going in. That's one of those things where they're going to be like, the hand was up for a minor penalty. It got washed out by the goal. Nothing to it. That's hockey. Just grinds you.
It's the type of play where if the injury could have been way worse. Like, Rasmussen was good to get up, but I think I said last episode, if he was a couple feet left or right and he runs into the post, like, that's major damage. And I think that's when the NHL looks at it, which is a tough thing to hear because those types of plays are not hockey plays. The puck was absolutely nowhere near Michael Rasmussen's feet. And by all rights, that puck was going in the net anyway, given the distance Michael Rasmussen was to the net. Those types of plays grind my gears, and there's just no need for that at all.
Moving on. What's grinding people's gears in Vancouver?
Do they even have any gears left? They're just round circles now.
Yeah, they're just bearings at this point. Jim Rutherford does a couple interviews, and the first one was like, that is an exasperated man. And the quotes are just, if you are in a Canadian market, your life expectancy must be like 6 years lower than fans of non-Canadian markets. If you're not in a Canadian market and watching these teams melt down is just so entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
With the rift between JT Miller and Elias Petterson being well public knowledge at this point, you have the head of the organization, like above Alvina's GM, like the president of hockey ops and really the face of the organization in terms of your brass coming out and saying there's no good solution to this rift, and saying, you think they solved it before and then it goes away. And then, there's stories of JT Miller, this problem has followed him everywhere. So is he the problem? But then being able to at least talk to Miller when there's a blow up, but apparently that's not the case with Petterson. Like, this is just a fiasco, and this is their number 1 and 2 center. And then you have Rutherford coming out here confirming that not just one, probably both have to go here. Like, they want to redo on all of this, saying if a center goes out, we have to get some kind of center back, but it's not going to be the same kind of center. So it might not even be a number 2 center. So we got to kind of do our best. And try to get extra things in the trade. And then he's talking about, Quinn Hughes, he's a couple of years away from his contract being up. And if they do a whole reset, they're not going to be able to keep him. And like, you went from a team that potentially is scaring for the cup last season to, for no reason on ice, giving all of it away. And it might even get worse than losing Petterson and Miller. It could extend as bad as Hughes.
Well, it's just a toxic situation that continues to grow and grow. And, even if you're not one of the main players in that dispute and that relationship conflict, it's clearly spilling into the rest of the locker room as well, because everybody gets asked about it. It becomes the number one talking point in and around the league. And, you just can't avoid it. It distracts from the on-ice product and what you're trying to do. And there's no innocent bystanders in that locker room. Everybody's being affected by this. So you got to just make a move and be done with it. I think at this point, if you're Vancouver, if the hopes is to make the playoffs, which that roster, they should be making playoffs. Like, they should be thinking that they're contending for a cup. You're not going to get equal or better value for either of those players. This trade is about resolving the conflict and getting your season back on track.
The fact that it's an HR issue.
It is.
Like, and that to me is like, I understand you're not in the room and so you don't know how bad it is. And look, Pettersson's not performed to the level of his contract since he signed it. And he frustrates the fans with, different aspects of his game sometimes, let alone the production. JT Miller is like Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk in terms of not being able to calmly deal with that stuff or when he's frustrated, but he's a guy who's passionate. So you have the guy who might be inciting the problem, but at least is like, you'd rather tame a tiger kind of thing. And then you have a guy with as much talent to be in like the next tier behind McDavid. I honestly think Pettersson has that much talent in his body, but the execution's not there. And he's being paid, high 11 millions.
You empathize with both of them because JT Miller sees a guy who's got all the skill in the world, but it just, like I said last episode, like the past 60 games for Elias Pettersson have been absolutely atrocious. Like, where is that superstar that we all saw? So you can understand why JT Miller's rattled, because this is supposed to be one of the best guys on the planet, and it's just not good enough. And then you can also see it from Elias Pettersson's perspective, because you got this guy who just won't get off your ass and everybody's ass all the time. And and when you're playing poorly and it, those types of people are just insufferable. You just don't want to be around it. And the situation, completely makes sense. But the fact that they can't repair and find a coexistence between one another is just crazy to me.
And then you have Tocchet, who's supposed to be the guy to whip a team in shape, and Rutherford, who's been around the block more than pretty much anyone else in the league at this point. The toxic ownership from the Aquilinis, the reputation there probably isn't helping things, but that's not really been part of the story. I don't know, like, you can blame the Canadian media market, you can blame ownership, but at the end of the day, like, this is a failure top to bottom of the entire Vancouver Canucks organization if either one of these guys go, and it's insane that you're talking about both. And if Brock Boeser, they talk about Boeser, who would be available for the right price too before the deadline. Like,
it doesn't solve the problem though. You're still stuck with your two bad apples. You got to move on from one. You got to go back to the tape. If they cannot fix this permanently, like player to player, then they have to go back to the trade table and reevaluate the offers being put up to them and say, is this offer good enough to just resolve this problem? Because right now they can't keep it going this way.
And whatever deal they had at the Rangers didn't go with Miller, and they missed an opportunity to get a Rantanen deal back, or they missed an opportunity to get Nachas from Carolina. Like, these big guys are moving, and so it's you said it before, it's nearly impossible to trade the best player in a trade and win it. Like, it just doesn't really work that way.
You only find out in the long term, because you're going to get picks and prospects back, and the day one value of those is mostly unknown. So we wouldn't know for many years to come. And these types of moves only get more difficult as the trade deadline approaches. Like, teams are going to want to get guys before the deadline, get them acclimated, get them building chemistry with line mates. They don't want to be making massive, monstrous deals for an Elias Pettersson or a JT Miller on the trade deadline day. Like, that's when you're looking to solidify your lineup with, trading prospects and picks for a certified NHL player. This move will not get easier as the season progresses.
You know who's celebrating it though?
Everyone else?
Everyone else, because as this gets worse, the price gets lower. And if you're a team who's like, I can fix him, and you think like you get him out of that situation, whether you're talking about Miller or Pettersson, I could honestly see that being the case for Detroit. If you let's say you want to overpay for Pettersson, you, for example, Evan, you're not a big Pettersson guy. You don't necessarily think that like he's the kind of player you want to invest a lot of assets or that much money in. But if you can get him for the right amount of assets, and even if he never plays to the tune of like 11.6 million or 12 million, or, he's always kind of overpaid by a little bit, it's still a ton of talent that you can add if you're able to solve him and get him in the right environment. And those kinds of players are hard. Like, Leafs fans will tell you, earlier years, Marner in the playoffs when he wasn't taking hits in the playoffs and they lost for it, or, fans of players who are just, they completely disappear. You talked about it before. All the talent in the world, they disappear when it matters. That's hard. But I think that kind of player is becoming more and more common in the NHL. You want to call them softer or more sensitive or whatever. But I think that's the reality of it. So if you can add that talent and you can get it at a lower price, I think it's worth the pain in my mind. You don't have to agree. And I know you're not a big Pettersson guy, but
yeah, I am all for overspending when superstars become available, but I'm not sure I'm sold on Elias Pettersson being that long-term superstar. Like, we've seen the flashes of brilliance. We've seen some seasons of mid-30 goal scoring as a center, which is incredible. But you're taking a big cap risk and a big asset risk if you think that you can, quote unquote, fix him.
Well, he might be the guy that's available, because it was reported that there may be some, I think Strickland reported this, but there might be some belief that if Carolina can't extend Mikko Rantanen, the team that might fit in that's been rumored, because he shares
the Colorado Avalanche.
Yes. Even worse for the Avalanche is the Edmonton Oilers, because Rantanen shares an agent apparently with Draisaitl, and
because they need more high-end goal scorers, right? Because they're starved for goal scoring.
That would be outrageous. You have those three on one team. You got to be able to get a cup together at that point.
I'm not a strong believer in outscoring your goal problems, but I actually think Edmonton could outscore any issues that they had as a team.
They've come close.
They have. They needed
like
maybe
one
or two more depth pieces last year so that Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid didn't hit the absolute wall.
Yeah. And how much would, like, if you're a Colorado Avalanche fan where you just let this guy go because you're like, you can't make this work because we can't pay three superstars in terms of McKinnon, Makar, and then Rantanen. And then you have the only other team who probably would have the heavier set of superstars to pay, because you have McDavid and Draisaitl. And Draisaitl this year's playing like the best player on the planet, making $14 million with his extension. McDavid's going to make, we'll see how that. And McDavid would take a haircut to fit in Rantanen, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So that would be, I would be happy that it's happening out west. It'd be sad that Detroit doesn't get the Rantanen opportunity, but outrageous.
Yeah, that would be... Yeah, it would suck to be in the Pacific Division, that's for sure. It will be very interesting to see how Mikko Rantanen's season finishes out, because if he just goes supernova and just carries Carolina deep into the playoffs, I can already hear the Brinks truck in North Carolina backing up to his house. If he slows down a little bit and, the production isn't quite there, that will certainly make the negotiations in his offseason a little bit more interesting. I'm not saying teams will be like, we're not doing anything, like this guy isn't a proven commodity anymore, but it'll certainly add some interest and another element to that UFA negotiations.
Speaking of out west, the Utah Yetis will never be. They are giving up that name because of the trademark copyright issues with, of course, the Yeti brand of coolers and tumblers. And
how much does that company cost? They could certainly just buy Yeti. I mean,
they could not buy Yeti. That has to be.
You tell me. I don't know. Their owner is a billionaire who owns 2 sports teams.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot the ownership. Yeah. Yeti company valuation. What do you think it is?
I honestly am terrible at this kind of thing. I don't know. $1 billion, let's say.
As of January 27, 2025, Yeti Holdings had a market cap of $3.19 billion.
Wow.
And enterprise value, similar, $3.09 billion.
You know what they should do? They should have a Stanley night. That is what they should do.
They'd expand their reach. Anyways, no longer looking at the Yeti, and they are having their fans over the next 4 home games apparently vote on 3 possibilities. Utah Hockey Club, I can't get behind it.
No.
Utah Mammoth, which was one of the other popular picks with Yeti, and Utah Wasatch, which is the mountain range. I believe it is.
That has to be the worst one there. And I don't like Hockey Club at all.
It's terrible, right? Like,
is there not a state bird or a state animal that they could throw in there instead?
Yeah, it was the Yeti.
Oh.
No, I'm messing with
an
you.
Idiot.
No, I don't think that's the actual one. It's got to be Mammoth, right? I
would imagine so. It just... Maybe I'm just out of touch, but that just doesn't feel like a professional team's name, you know? It kind of feels like that's what you'd name your beer league team, or like that's like a minor league type name.
But the hockey club for me is just like, I don't know. I get it. It's like when Washington had the Washington football team before they took the Commanders. Yeah, it's novel, it's fun, but I'm like, I don't think. Maybe it's just because I grew up. Every team had their city or state, and then the mascot. You know,
yeah.
It doesn't have to be good. The Golden Knights will forever be the Golden Knights, and I think that's a terrible name. But at the same time, someone might say, "What's a Red Wing?" Like, I get it. It doesn't always make sense, but hockey club, like, it's just, you feel. To me, it feels like, oh, this is novel. It's cool. How we should do it, and then down the road, you'll be like, this is dumb.
Yeah, it feels like hockey club's kind of the low effort option. It's like, hey, we are already doing this because we wanted to do it right off the start, and this is just a placeholder. And now they're like, maybe it's not a placeholder. Maybe we don't have to change it. I don't know.
Save a lot of money.
They would save a fortune just keeping it the way it is.
And I'm super worried about them saving money. Like, it's very important.
Yes. Hopefully they will be able to figure this out financially going forward.
Big concern. Okay, we are going to take a quick break. And when we're back, before we jump into overtime, we are going to hear from Jiri Fischer about a very important upcoming event. Stay tuned. So there's an event coming up that we were excited to promote here on the Winged Wheel podcast. And we're going to do that here, but even better than just promoting that event, we thought the listeners would be excited to hear from none other than Jiri Fischer, first time on the Winged Wheel podcast. Jiri, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about Shocks and Saves.
Great. Thanks very much for having me.
So the 17th annual Shocks and Saves charity hockey game is on February 1st, 7:05 p.m. It's a Kitchener Rangers Saginaw Spirit game with a charity game beforehand, though, at 4 p.m. featuring local lifesavers and Red Wings alumni. Jiri, you're obviously a big part of that event, and with Shocks and Saves, the incredible work that you've done. So tell us more about the event and the work you do.
Well, it's been 17th annual. We missed one during COVID. A lot of things weren't operating, so we couldn't do one then. And it's coincidental. This year is going to be 20th anniversary on November 21st of my cardiac arrest. Time goes by. I run into people in public all over Detroit. I live on the west side, and hey, I watched that game, and I'm like, well, yeah, you want to talk about it? So it's we had this idea where Dr. Peter Fatal came up to me. I was signing autographs in Saginaw for charity. This was about a few months right after my cardiac arrest in 2005. And, he kind of stood in the line, and then I had a few pictures to get signed. And I was like, hey, do you mind talking after? I'm like, sure. I didn't know him at the time. And he introduced himself when we were all done. Hey, I'm a local cardiologist here. I work in the hospital, and since you've gone through this experience, what do you think? Let's do something good in the community, and let's play a hockey game. I kind of looked at him. I just died in one, a few months ago. I'm not sure if that's the best idea, but you know what? It's been absolutely, it's been a thrill. It's been great every year. It gets better every year. It's really exciting. And, we've, the format that, we kind of picked already back then. We do it in conjunction of Saginaw Spirit Game. They always play. Generally, our event falls into this year is on Saturday on the 1st, and it's either last weekend of January or first weekend of February, with February being the Heart Awareness Health Month. So we try to do it obviously all in conjunction, and it's been great. It's been really rewarding. It's been humbling to be part of it, and it's been a lot of fun.
So with this event specifically, obviously the Kitchener Rangers versus Saginaw Spirit is going to be a great game to raise money as well. But we were talking beforehand that the local lifesavers and Red Wings alumni that are going to be out. There's some big names out there. There's Kirk Maltby. You mentioned Brad Stewart, Jakob Kindle, who Red Wings fans will remember. What else kind of goes into this, and how great is it to get those people together with the the EMS and the responders?
Well, we really try to keep it as bringing few alumni of NHL teams in, and so it's fun for everybody. First of all, guys who want to be part of the event, most of them obviously doing it for the first time. They don't know what to expect, and it's certainly not an event to challenge the NHL caliber of hockey. It's cardiologists playing against CMS people, and other local responders from ambulance drivers, firemen, policemen, and people who save people's lives. And so every year I try to bring few friends. We try to limit it at 6-7 max. And Chris Torburn's going to be ex-captain of Saginaw, long-time NHLer. He's going to be part of it as well. Trevor Nell, who is a good friend of mine. We used to train together. He was a Michigan State captain, and then after a few years in the minors, he had to retire because of cardiac abnormalities. And so we'll keep it fun. And there's it's how things work out. Chris Tamer, who's also going to be playing in this game this year, he was coaching my son, who is now playing in Sarnia. He was coaching him on CompuWare, and so great guy. He's coming over, and so the storylines kind of intertwine, and we try to keep the game very light, and some guys break a sweat, some guys don't. We try really hard, and it's fun.
So we were chatting before about the impact of the program and all of the AEDs that have been installed in different places, the education that's gone in. Can you talk about the importance of these devices and the education behind them? Because it ties in directly to the kind of preparedness that helps make the difference in critical situations, which you're obviously familiar with. And not only that, like you've seen changes and impacts in terms of direct lives saved from your program and in the NHL guidelines, like afterwards, after what happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was, I go back to 2005, and so when I had my cardiac arrest, it was, it was something that caught a lot of people off guard. But Tony Colucci, the head Red Wings doctor at the time, who essentially orchestrated the whole revival. When I fell unconscious on the bench, he got everybody working all together. Everybody had their role. I was flatlined for about 30 seconds, and he brought me back. He used the AED, and this is it's really rewind 20 years. AEDs, the external defibrillators, they weren't really in common use. Lots of NHL teams didn't even have one as a part of the medical equipment, to have around the bench. And so Tony was very proactive. Being an ER doctor. A lot of guidelines have changed in the NHL that now every home game there needs to be an ER doc. I only a few days before we were playing in Edmonton, and you know, the guidelines were different. The doctors were sitting in a suite by the ceiling, and you know, I happened to get stitches that day, just a routine high stick as a hockey player, and you know, you wait till the end of the period. Well, with cardiac arrest, you can really exactly wait till the end of the period, and so the Wings were proactive. They saved my life, and Tony was sitting right behind the bench with Duck Plagins, and they got working on me right away. You know, that's become part of the guideline for the NHL teams, that doctors need to sit within 40 feet of the bench, and which were obviously expensive tickets. You know, it wasn't always like that, and you know, when I was getting pulled through the tunnel, when I was kind of stabilized and, you know, going towards the ambulance, there was an equipment truck that the visiting team uses, you know, for the bags taken in and out of the airport, you know, when they're going for the game. Well, so now that truck can't be there, because that was actually, that day was blocking the ambulance, and, you know, they kind of had to go around it when I was on the stretcher. And now I was unconscious. So I don't remember most of it, besides my fiance telling me the stories, and, you know, until I woke up in a hospital. But really, the preparedness goes even further, that now there's emergency respond intercom on the planes if something happens. And so I think the NHL is being extremely proactive, and you know, Rich Beverly going through cardiac arrest, and Jay Baumeister, and you know, I hope it never happens again, but if it does to someone, I hope they're going to be in good hands, just like I was.
It's an incredible impact that's being made, you know, not just in changes to these policies, but everything you told me about. You know, you're right. Like, these are direct lives saved through this work. And so it really is an amazing cause, and we really encourage everyone to check it out. So I'll put the link in the description here. This episode, we'll post it all over socials. The February 1st, 7:05 p.m. charity game, as well as the 4 p.m. game prior, featuring the local lifesavers and the Red Wings alumni. An incredible, incredible cause. The impact being made by this program, by Shocks and Saves, I couldn't overstate it if I tried. So
It's been awesome. I just to bring it in perspective, what's happened in Mid-Michigan. So this is the 17th annual, and you know, so we're going to be playing at 4:00 before the Saginaw Spirit game against Kitchener, and you know, 17 years later, and now in Mid-Michigan, the Bay City region, Saginaw, it's turned into where basically the survival rate for sudden cardiac arrest in public has doubled compared to the rest of Michigan. And Shocks and Saves, you know, it's a name of our event, but Pulse 3 Foundation is the boots on the ground, the work behind it. That's led by Steve Vance and Dr. Peter Fatal, who essentially we started the event together with. And you know, since we've been doing it, the numbers are getting great. It's really generated over $1 million. Every dollar goes towards CPR training for Mid-Michigan people, and then it goes towards you know, placing defibrillators in public places. And there's over 400 units that our effort has placed, and those exact units have saved over 20 people's lives. And you know, when I hear the numbers, I'm excited. Let's do another one. So let's let's do 18th annual next year, and it's really been fun to be part of it.
You are an extremely busy guy, so I will let you go after one hockey question. You know, obviously you do important work with the Detroit Red Wings, but that's not what I'm going to ask you about today. I want to ask you, do you see your game in your son's playing? And I'm looking at Lucas, who was just drafted last year by the St. Louis Blues, 56th overall in that draft. Do you see your game in them, or do they play a different style than their dad?
We spend a lot of time together, obviously, you know, go on the ice. I was definitely a hockey dad for several years, and you know, kind of use the same philosophy as my dad. Try to push him as hard as you can before puberty, and when puberty hits, they better know what they're doing. So you know, when the hormones kick in, you start butting heads, and it's not great for relationships. So, you know, take the foot off the pedal as the hockey dad. And so I'm a firm believer that's that's how my dad helped me, and it's been really a lot of fun. I go to Sarnia for maybe half a dozen games a year to watch live. He's in a great situation there. He's a captain of the team and absolutely loves it. So now I'm a happy cheering dad. We talk hockey whenever he has questions, but our relationship has evolved where now he's a man. He's got his own path, and some people noticed last draft that he's working hard.
That's incredible. Great work, obviously, being done through your program and obviously your work as director of player evaluation with the Red Wings, and then for Lucas, that's amazing with Sarnia. So sorry he couldn't be a Red Wings draft pick. I know we were hoping for it, but excited to watch his career develop, and again, really excited for this event this year. And we're going to try to get down there for the 18th annual.
That would be great. That would be great. You're definitely invited.
Appreciate it. Okay, folks, Jiri Fischer, we'd love to have you back on sometime, but thanks for taking the time today to talk to us about this incredible event.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheel podcast. Again, if you want to support the show, the bonus overtime episodes, the giveaways, the Discord, all of that and lots more. Let's jump into some questions from our patrons. Starting here from Daily Grind, new patron. Welcome to the Dub Dub Club. Says, hey guys, love the podcast. Just joined on Patreon. Appreciate all of the great content. The Grand Rapids show was awesome. Great to hear. Never know how those live shows.
No.
From up there, I'm like, oh, this must suck.
Yeah, expectations are always so low in my mind.
You're all very generous. Curious about Johansson's next contract if he keeps up this level of play. Are there any comparable players across the league that might help project his potential deal?
It's so hard to say right now because he wasn't getting a lot of opportunity earlier in the season. So I think time will be the best evaluator of what an Albert Johansson contract might look like, obviously. Just really hard to say right now.
It's still extremely early, and it's not like he's producing a ton of points. So you're looking at a low number. I mean, if you're him, the most likely outcome is a low number short to midterm deal, but they might like what they see in terms of like a solid depth defenseman and keep him for longer. But if you're him, would you stay at that lower number? If he starts to produce at a much higher click, for example, or something like that, he might be able to get a bit more, but mostly in the NHL, points will dictate a lot of the baseline of your contract. So you're not going to see a massive number for him as of right now.
I don't think so either.
Directionally correct, says Marco Kasper's exploding development through McLellan's deployment has been exciting to watch. Is it just me, or do you see Larkin and Raymond teaching him how to drive a line? If so, is this a blueprint for future young player development, thinking Danielson, Lambeau, MBN, etc.? Like, there's a ton to love about Marco Kasper's game, but I think driving a line is a special kind of ability that even highly talented offensive players can't do. Alex DeBrincat is a highly talented offensive player. He does not drive his own line. You have to be a distributor of the puck. You have to be a facilitator of movement up and down the ice in the offensive zone. You have to generate space for the players around you. And he does that in different ways, but I don't necessarily see him as a likely. I'm not going to, speak in definitives here. I don't think you ever can with prospects, Kasper being a great example. I don't see him as being a line driver. And like, that's something you have to learn, but it's not learnable by every player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they need to have some sort of exceptionally high-end talent that allows them to do it, whether it's a combination of speed and goal scoring, a speed and playmaking. I wouldn't say Lucas Raymond's the fastest guy on the ice, but he's got elite level playmaking, elite level hockey IQ, and he can deceive his opponents, and that allows him to help drive his line. Could Marco Kasper drive a third line? Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got the raw talent and the ability to do that. It just gets exponentially more difficult as you move up the lineup. And
it's not a black and white thing. Like, it's not binary. You either are a line driver or you are a passenger. It's like guys can be extremely easy to play with because of what else they bring to a line. You can sometimes drive a line depending on the opponents you're facing or the guys you have with you. Like, it's a sliding scale for sure.
And a lot of it can be experience too. Like they've been there, done that, and they can sort of lead that line through the ups and downs of a season. So I'm not going to say Marco Kasper can or cannot be a line driver going forward, but he's in a great spot right now to learn the ropes on how to do that.
Oh, yeah. Erie says, new patron here, loving the content as an ex-Michigander living in Massachusetts. Welcome to the Dub Club. Thank you so much for your support. As a new fan of hockey, what do you guys think of the tendency of players dumping the puck in the O-zone while you're ahead? Why are teams afraid to handle the puck in the O-zone while in the lead? It seems more dangerous to me to give the opposition free pucks, but if the professionals are doing it, then there must be a reason they're doing it this way. It's not like it's boring for people to see, and it's frustrating, especially when you need possession. But there's a lot else that goes into it. First, dumping the puck in the zone is safe. A turnover at the blue line when all your forwards are moving in one direction and all of a sudden play goes the other way, that spells odd man rush. And so if you're trying to protect a lead, you don't want to do that. You want your defense to be able to get set. If you have any kind of neutral zone disruption, you want that to be able to get set. Kills time. Defensemen have to retrieve a puck, get settled, make a play. And all the while you're pressuring them and you could get a puck retrieval. And you're just hemming them in and grinding them. Like if you've played defense, constantly having to go into the corner and get a puck and take a hit, like you're not only are you going to cough it up, it wears you down too. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it is the safer play.
Yeah, it's the most risk averse thing to do with the puck when you have the lead in a game. You dump it down into the opposing team's end. It's as far away from your net as it possibly could be. And I think the key point is what you said. It eliminates those blue line, red line type turnovers, which even the worst teams in the NHL can capitalize on.
And the big part of getting set too is like, yeah, even if you don't get the puck and you're only sending one guy in for pressure, or maybe even like loosely on pressure, then everyone else on your team is getting set to set that neutral zone trap, to stack up on your blue line, to force them to hopefully dump it in or not give them a clean entry. So it's not a chess match. It's not set pieces the way like football is, but a lot of it is a chess game at that point.
Yeah.
The Dandy Man Can says, is it time to be worried about Boeser with his injuries? If Soderblom, him, and Lombardi are our third line in 2 years, will everyone who questions Stevie's picks past the first round owe him an apology? Boeser's injury, I don't think, was like an injury-prone thing. It's not really what it struck me as. So I'm not concerned on that front. I still want to see Boeser continue to work to get to like a pro size so he can handle the physicality that will come with his game. But I don't have concern at that point.
No, me neither. It was just a very unfortunate injury, and now he's got the long road to get back up to speed and get those reps back in. So hopefully the rest of the season goes as he had planned. It just sucks for Carter.
And if it's him, Soderblom, and Lombardi, then yeah, that's a big testament. It's a massive testament. There's see.
Not a lot of teams when they're competitive that can say they drafted their entire third line. So if that's how it works out for the Red Wings, then yeah, tip of the cap to Steve Yzerman and staff.
Trevor DeWeird says, if you had to choose a winner of the Renton and Necas trade, who would it be short term and long term? Short term, I will say, I think
short term feels like Carolina, right? Like they got the big fish. I
know Colorado's Necas for another year, but to me, Renton is a better player in there.
Oh, 100%. They're betting on potential and upside the whole way with that. And I guess they assumed they wouldn't be able to get a contract done for Mikko Rantanen at the end of the year. Yeah, short term, it has to be Carolina. Like they now have one of the premier players in the NHL on their team. Long term, it's hard to say. Like if they can re-sign him at a cap hit that works, and I'd say it's Carolina as well.
Yeah, it's the ultimate wait and see. If Colorado manages a cup with Necas, then they'll be just as happy.
Yeah.
It's like when we say if a team signs a god-awful contract, but they win a cup with that player, you don't care. Florida Panthers do not care about Bobrovsky's contract.
No.
They got a cup, so that's what matters. So it's impossible to say for sure, but I lean towards the team that got the best player. A lot of it's going to hinge on if they can re-sign him in Carolina.
Yep.
DeLucas Larkin says, how many points would you be happy with on this 4-game road trip? Guess it depends on how the rest of the Atlantic/wildcard teams fare, but 5 would be great with me. I'd honestly be happy with 4. You're going up against Edmonton and Calgary on the road. Like those are not easy games. I would be happy walking away with 500 points percentage.
Absolutely. I think 500 is probably the bare minimum. If you get less, then you're really trying to gather some momentum again to keep yourself in the playoff hunt. So yeah, I'd say, their winning percentage is around 500 anyway. So, you'd be looking at 4 points. That would be my minimum given the vibes and the confidence around the team right now.
Clint Benesh says, of all the variations of the All-Star game we've seen, which is your favorite? I know it's a very old head back in the day thing, but back in the day, East-West, North America versus World was great.
I like that one more because it gives the World players more time. Like you get a lot of the Finnish guys and the Swedish guys on the same team again, and it's so hard for those guys to keep in touch throughout the season because everyone's so busy and on the road. So that's the one time where some of those guys who've grown up playing together and in their country's development system, that they can actually get to be amongst each other again. So that the World versus North America is one of my favorite.
James McLean, aka Jambo, says, what are the odds of a significant to major acquisition before NHL play resumes in February for Detroit? If we manage to get a bona fide 1 or 2C via trade or UFA, do we just keep Marco as a top 6 winger? Is it better for him to be a point per game winger or a 60-point center? If Marco Kasper can be a 60-point center, you take that every day of the week. Absolutely.
I think right now you don't move him from his position unless the Red Wings do get a bona fide elite first-line winger. Will that happen before or after the break? I highly doubt it. It would be it'd be pretty crazy to see a team that's really finding its groove right now to make a monster splash.
I will say there's a lot of there always is noise. Those who know me know I don't report on everything I hear because I think I just don't want to be one of those guys because there's always something happening to some degree and it gets out and this team's around this player, but every GM is kind of always working on something and almost none of it virtually comes to fruition. It's just how the NHL is. That said, relatively speaking, there is more activity in terms of what I believe teams are trying to make big moves. And I think Detroit's one of them. And with some big names still out there, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a hard push. Now, I'm not guaranteeing it. I still think the chances are very low because it's the NHL and the Nachas Rantanen trade is more of an aberration than anything. We saw an almost Cousins trade with Buffalo and we have nothing to show it didn't happen. And that's real. That was a real thing that was happening. Still might, I don't know. But I think the odds are higher still relatively than they usually are. So I wouldn't call it likely, but there's something there, keeping a pulse on it for sure.
When another team in your division or your conference makes a monster move like Carolina did, GMs start looking around and they want to start the arms race. We see it all the time at free agent frenzy. When one target gets knocked off, all of a sudden there's 6 other guys with contracts in hand. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some fireworks. I just don't know if it'll be in Detroit.
Last one here, Give Simon the Heart says, for a couple of years, you guys were eyeing Winnipeg as a team that could potentially decide to tear it down in a way where the Red Wings could exploit.
No one said we're smart.
It doesn't look like that's happening now. So who's the new Winnipeg and who's a player you'd be interested in trading futures for?
It's got to be Vancouver.
Vancouver's the easy answer there for good reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, trading futures, there's a lot of the star names, whether you're in my camp or Evan's camp on Petterson, you get a guy like JT Miller cheap. If you think it's worth the risk on personality, I'd be Brock Boeser could have been had if he just took his contract not very long ago. So, I mean, health concerns aside, I don't know where that is long-term, but that's another player where for the right price to take him, everyone's going to look at Quinn Hughes now that Rutherford said what he said.
I shudder to think what getting Quinn Hughes would cost. It would be you'd empty your cupboard.
And to be worth it.
Red Wings would have no bad defensemen once Axel Sandin Pellikka, if he was even still there after that trade. They would have Edvinsson, Seider, Sandin Pellikka, Quinn Hughes.
It'd be the ultimate close that loop storyline.
They should have just drafted him if they are really that interested.
Okay, we're wrapping this up. Thank you all so very much for tuning into this episode of the Wing Wheel Podcast. We're going to be back with you Sunday, unfortunately with Brad this time. So Either you enjoyed his absence or you'll be happy about that, one or the other. There's certainly nobody who's in between. Thank you so much to the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast and to all of our listeners, new and old. Thank you for tuning in. To our Patreon supporters, we cannot thank you enough for all of your support and what you allow us to do. Again, patreon.com/Winged Wheel podcast. Don't forget to check out Shocks and Saves charity hockey game on Saturday, February 1st. More is the Winged Wheel podcast night at the LCA, Saturday, March 29th against the Boston Bruins. Go to wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings to get your tickets. They're running out fast. I think the gondola tickets are all gone now, but there's still plenty more tickets in the lower bowl and some upper bowl tickets available. Again, patreon.com/Winged Wheel podcast. If you want to support the show, but Patreon's not for you, leave a rating. However you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the thumbs up, the star, the rating, the review, and subscribe. All of that helps. Tell a friend about the show. To our name level supporters on Patreon, you are everything to us. Arjun Shanker, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, THL Champ, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Alexander Hansen, the Moritz Seider, Ghost of OSBP, Glenn Brabham, Sea Lion, Matthew M. Rice, Adam Rose, Adam Zuiza, Admiral Matt S. of the Cheesebag Navy, Alex Toger, Asher Killian, Beer League Legend, Best James Bond, Bingo Bango, Brett Kokesh, Carl Brutinen Nanaluski, Carl Provi, CB55, Chris Felinsky, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Enstam, Dickens, Cider. You got me this time. I don't know why I said it this time. Formerly Marlon Winchester. Why did I do that? DJ Denton, Eric Hill, Give Blood, Fight Probert, Goose, Looney's Drinking Club, Grand Rapids Girly, Griffin, God Creatives, Hattrick, Sandine, Pelica, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam Al-Qassem, I Met Larkin Once, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, James McLean, a.k.a. Jambo, Jeff Pridemore, John Ingalls, Jonathan Miller, Kalen Wood, Lunchbox, Mark Hernandez, Marty, Matt Keeler, Matt McKay, Michael Ludland, Mr. Kuzi. Now I have to learn how to click on a Macintosh. R.A., Raptor Kitchen, Riley Enright, Robert Smith, Roy Donk, Ryan Britt, Scott Martin, Skeletor, Steve the Liability, Stephen Ordeleb, That's What I Appreciate About You, Wallman's Elite Dancing D, Iser Plan Stan, Aaron Hudson, General Andy Bohannon, The Cheesebag Army, Sam Bankson, A.A. Ron, A.B., All Motor No Hands, Ann Stanislavski, Antonio Gracias, Bellingham Massiballs, Bex, C.E. Hayes, Chimkim Nutgits, Commander Ben Barron of the Cheesebag Space Force, Connor Layton, Corey Prida, Darren Fick, Datsukes Dangleberries, Deep In, Cider, Dylan Larkin, Trade Sacrifice, DeLucas Larkmint, Eric Nance, Evan Beckner, Gene Sullivan, Grepsky, Griffey Boy, Jake Stats, the best hockey stats around, James Pridemore, Jeremiah Dobo, Jim, JM Rhapsody, Joey Jojo Shabadoo, Josh Yelton, Chaotic Monkey, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Larkin's Loyal Lemming, Linda Hull, Lonnie Zone, Lucas Raymond, Major Hole, Mitch Minier, Ophelia, As Good As It Gets, Ryan M, Sandy P, Right Hand D, Steven, That Other Guy, The Hodag, The Hat 123, Trent Thorough, Wings fan in St. Louis, Scott, and your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. We'll talk to you Sunday.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.